These prints I made with a stencil and water effects that amazed me. And then I worked one of them out with watercolor. Watch me do that. Hello Gelli fans! It is nothing really new to add water to your printing paint. We all know the beading and resist effects. But what happens if you catch the effects in a certain pattern, like with a stencil for example? I tried that and was amazed how much I like it. So I'm showing you this little experiment today. Here you see me inking up the plate with my beloved golden open acrylic paint. Then I spritz on some water with my water spray bottle. I roll the paint out and you can see the typical effects. If you happen to work with very fluid paint like acrylic ink, you might not even have to add water, as sometimes you get the effect with acrylics right away. I usually don't like ready-made stencils much. I prefer the ones I make myself. Here is a link to a video I made about making stencils from photos. But this one with a bunch of cheeky skulls I love. And you know my morbid and macabre side. Making fun of death helps me deal with him better. I am taking the excess off with rice paper, as it picks up most of the paint, or even all of it if you press longer. And underneath the stencil, the water and paint mix has formed these wonderful resist textures that I love to work with. I'm pulling the print with a Bristol paper. I didn't know I was going to work on it with watercolor later, and if you want to do that, it's better to take watercolor paper. And this, by the way, is the negative that I just took with a rice paper. And the reveal shows that it's really, really nice and just what I wanted. I'll be working this out in a minute, but first I want to show you something else that I've done before. Some of you may know it, but the remaining paint on the stencil you can brush off with, I think I used a baby wipe. Anyway, the golden open paint stays wet on the stencil for a long time as it's plastic. And so you can probably do it with a regular tissue as well. And this is just a very nice and easy way to have an astonishing effect. And I'm also including the frame here. Isn't that cute? I like the impression of movement in this. So I worked this one out with my beloved Polychromos pencils, only the black one in this case. And first I want to make the outlines of the skulls sharper by just adding shadows. Remember, the light comes from the top left, or this is what I assume here. And so I'm making shadows only downwards and on the right side. And you can see how lovely the water effects add to the cuteness of the skulls somehow. They probably have bad skin diseases or so. My fascination for skulls dates a long time ago. As a kid, I already liked them. And I know some great artists, friends of mine, who can draw skulls like, wow. Gruß an Axel here. Yeah, so I think the skull mania, you know, rich people, they buy sculptures with diamonds on them. So I guess I'm not the only one. Here I had to make marks with the stencil again because I lost some of the shapes of the skulls. But still I'm trying not to make too definite marks, as I don't want to lose that rough feeling I have here. And it's the one thing that gets me away from the impression that this is a really artificial, probably AI-made stencil. But while I'm doing this, I'm noticing that some of these skulls, they don't have teeth. So maybe it's not an AI stencil, because somebody thought, well, some skulls lost their teeth. And I'm also, as I want to make the frame part of the artwork, I'm also adding a shadow to the frame itself. And still trying to make it quite irregular, to look not too perfect. Here the teeth are going into the frame. That's funny. Death is saying, you can't avoid me, you can't make art of me by putting a frame around me. I will bite into the frame. And that is true. You can't be certain about him or when he's coming. Enough of that. And also some water spots on the frame itself. And I quite like it like this, so I'm probably gonna leave it like this. Signing it. That looks nice inside the frame. I'm very happy with it. I was thinking about adding color, but for now I'm gonna leave it like this, pure black and white. And I'm so sorry, but for this one I made another print and I used a lot less water. So you can see, sorry, the camera didn't record. It's never the camera, it's the artist. I forgot to press record, so I am very sorry. But I just used less water and I thought it evenly interesting, I have to say. Only very small water drops. And I like this double frame the skulls have around them. And I know if you can see it well when I'm adding shadows to the skulls inside their outlines. You know, they have this black and white and then black again outline. And I'm making the shadows and making them 3D inside. So that is a rather very abstract and strange way to work it out. And also making shadows for the small but few water drops to make them pop up a little more in this baby's skull. Isn't it cute? Now I want to add some watercolor. And I made some tests also with dropping water to make flowers, cauliflowers, I think some people call them. And I don't want to add the watercolor to this one because it has so much structure in the back and I think it's too busy already. So I'm taking that darker, more simple one. And I'll show you the blue technique. Now what you see me doing here, or what you think you're seeing me do, because you can't really see it, is I'm just adding water to the background. And I'm taking care it's not too wet, so there are no puddles. And before I put the paint in, I'm also taking care that the water amount is even in all places. Now I picked up some of the pure paint out of the tube. And also the watercolors will be listed in the info box below for you. This is a beautiful color I work with very often. It just goes so well with the black and white, I think. So now, after it's almost dried, I'm putting in some water drops. This is something you really have to practice if you can't do it. It's I'm adding a little more paint here because the blooming effect wasn't enough for my taste. So I put more water in it and then sucked up some amount of water back up again. So that makes the whole thing interesting. It's really not something you can explain. You just, if you do it a lot, you will exactly know when to put the water in to get the blooms. If you do it too late, the paint will be dried. You will have no effect. And if you do it too soon, there's no effect because the water will just mix with the water. You see, I'm repeating the whole process, which is a bit risky because you can ruin the paper if you repeat it too often. I'm actually surprised that the Bristol paper takes this paint and water amount so well, which is good because the Bristol paper is rather cheap. I'm working in this corner here, putting water on, making it even, and then adding the paint. I'm using a little more paint here because it's on the lower side of the painting, so I want it to be a little darker, just a little. And now I'm adding small water drops. Same thing in these small areas. Now I have a larger area. It is difficult to water it all down evenly, so I'm working in parts, in this case in 2 parts. I'm adding water to all the lower part. And note that I'm watering it down, going up a little, meaning I'm going up with the water there. I'm going up further than where the paint is going to creep. You'll see what I mean in a second. Adding paint here. Quite a lot of paint in this area. It's a little hard to see, but the paint, the water moved up here. So I'm not afraid that it will leave a dried edge. And by the way, I'm showing you all this in real time so you can see how much time it takes and how careful you have to work to get the aimed achievement. I think you know what I mean. So nice blooms are forming. And while the paint is doing its thing, I can continue with the upper part of this space. So I'm speeding this up now because you know the process. And working my water into the paper up there. You know, if you're a watercolor specialist, you know that you also have all kinds of different brushes that can work miracles if you use the right one. But I'm not going that far this time because my focus is on that jelly print. And by the way, for all of you who are waiting for this, I'm also working on negative painting and negative printing at the moment. That's a little more complex, so I might need like 2 or 3 weeks more. And I did this first because it's rather simple. Now note what I'm doing here. I'm pressing the pretty dry brush into the paint to take off too much water that I applied there. And then you just take the brush off and make it dry again, and then you can go on. And as the watercolor working out reaches its end, I still find it a little boring. and I want to add some highlights to the skull. This is a kind of crayon. This is actually water-soluble Caran Neocolor aquarelle, so you can also dilute it with water and you have a watercolor effect, but in this case I'm just using this dry. And I'm putting highlights on the skulls, left side, upper left side, and the sockets of the eyes above them, I don't know what that part is called, and the teeth. The Neocolor aquarelle crayon really leaves a little bit more of a white impression than the regular Caran pencil. Now they all look a little skeptical with these highlights over their eyes. Now at this point I decide that I want a little more contrast on the outlines of the skulls and also on the frame. Look, it's biting into the frame again. So I'm taking this Fineliner by, forgot what it's called. I'll put it down in the info box as usual. All the materials there are written. And some white teeth here. So I'm pretty happy with these two, and I think it made the ready-made stencil a lot more individual, and I like the outcome a lot. And the balloons and the watercolor did the rest. There are skulls on fire, I think. And this is the other one again, and I think I'll leave it like this. So if you like this, watch my new video next week, where I'm gonna do the same thing, the watercolor effects on a larger scale, just some trials. And also I want to show you how to use the water drop technique on a photo transfer, and that is gonna be really interesting. So I'll see you next week, hopefully. Bye!